This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
I'm Doug Shoup. I'm the Southeast Area Agronomist for Kansas State University. So I had the opportunity to share some information on cover crops that we've done in the state of Kansas, but specifically to soybeans as well. And so cover crops have become a new thing that producers are starting to incorporate into their crop rotations, and they serve a lot of benefits, from erosion control, so we can get some cover outgrowing there and stop some soil erosion. We can use cover crops in a livestock system as well for grazing. Also, producers have been fighting weed and herbicide-resistant weeds, and so cover crops have been a good tool to use for producers to help manage herbicide-resistant weeds as well. And really, it's an issue of where you're at in the state of Kansas. Sometimes cover crops can even be a detriment if you're in a water-limiting environment. Cover crops, like any plant, have a tendency to use water to produce its biomass, and if you're in some fallow situations out west, we've seen some negative yield results on wheat when cover crop was previously grown ahead of that wheat. It used that soil moisture that wheat crop could have used later in the season. Now, as you move from west to east into areas that receive more rainfall, moisture is less of an issue. Producers have started to incorporate some cover crops into their system for herbicide-resistant weed control, and it does a pretty good job. Essentially, what it boils down to is, I don't care what cover crop you pick, but what our data has shown is that the more biomass you produce, the more residue that you put out on that ground, the more suppression you're going to get of these weeds as they try to emerge. And for the most part, we've had some tough luck in some of my studies with cover crops ahead of corn. We tend to plant corn early, and it's cooler and wetter, and corn tends to struggle in that environment. But for our soybeans, cover crops ahead of soybeans, we've had fairly neutral response, so we don't see at least any negative yield responses in our soybean plant cover crops. After corn, they get enough residue in the spring, and we plant beans in those in the spring. In some of the research on this corn-bean rotation with cover crops, we have taken several soil measurements as well. We haven't seen a whole lot of change in our biological components of the soil. We do see some changes in our nutrient profile, and some of these cover crops are bringing some of our phosphorus to the surface, and we're seeing some changes in our phosphorus levels among the different treatments. One of the things that cover crops do add is an organic matter component, and so we tend to see a change in organic matter, but it's generally not a big change and not very significant in our studies.
It's time, the Great Bend Farm and Ranch Expo, April 5th through the 7th in Great Bend, Kansas. This is your regional expo held in the heart of Kansas. J.D. Wing Horse Clinician all 3 days, sponsored by T-Cross Ranch and Bobby Norris Realty. Bradford Cattle Dogs, Border Collie demos all 3 days. Live cattle, beer garden, 80 acres and 3 buildings of exhibits. Corporate sponsors American Hat Company, the Great Bend Co-op. Go to starexpos.net for more information. April 5, 6, 7.